You're listening to Level Up with Wondr, a podcast where we take listeners on a journey through the exciting world of gaming, tech, and innovation. Join the Wondr Nation team as we talk with a diverse group of pros who have taken their skills to the next level.
Hello, I'm Anika Howard. Welcome to another episode of Level Up with Wondr. Today, as part of Women's History Month, I'm talking with Lauren Bates. Lauren has nearly 20 years of experience in gaming and is the board chair and president for Global Gaming Women. Lauren is a prominent leader in the gaming industry, being recognized by Global Gaming Business Emerging Leaders of Gaming in 2021 and CDC's Gaming Report's 10 Women Rising in Gaming in 2023. She's held a number of leadership positions, including serving as vice president of sales for Konami. Welcome, Lauren. I'm so happy to have you here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I've had the pleasure of working with you as a fellow Global Gaming Women board member, and we talked about so many things related to GGW and your family. So I'm very excited, looking forward to learning more about your career journey. Can you tell the listeners how your career began and its evolution?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like my story starts very similar to many of us in gaming, right? It always starts with, well, it's actually a funny story. I am from Mentor, Ohio, which is a suburb to the east of Cleveland, Ohio. So growing up, we did not have gaming. We did not have casinos. Obviously, that's changed at this point. So graduated from Ohio State University, had a degree in marketing and logistics, professional writing, and was ready to take on the world. And I ended up putting out a bunch of resumes. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was out actually on vacation visiting a friend in Las Vegas when I decided to put out a bunch of resumes just to kind of practice that interview process, right? I had been through a bunch of interviews. I didn't get the positions. So I was trying, practice makes perfect. For me, it was let's try to get some interviews and get better. So I ended up doing a couple of interviews. Full disclosure, I was not planning on actually accepting any of these roles, but I ended up interviewing with Konami Gaming. And I ended up meeting a couple of individuals and one woman in particular who actually a couple that I just remember thinking, I don't even know what they do, but they just had it, right? I want to be like them, you know? So I was offered the position as an executive coordinator. That was not what I went to college for. And I wanted something marketing or sales or things like that. The position with Konami was contingent upon me starting almost immediately because the person that I was replacing had already put in their 2 weeks notice. It was an opportunity that, again, I wasn't like no one else was really saying yes, and I wasn't really sure where I was going. So on my vacation, I decided to kind of take a leap of faith. And I remember it was yesterday, calling my mom to say, hey, so this vacation that I took in Las Vegas, I'm actually taking a job and moving across the country. And I will tell you, 17 years later, 18 years later, I'm still here. Started at Konami when I was 22 and started as a coordinator, then moved into system sales coordinator, then got my first sales position on the game side of the business. So worked in Las Vegas and predominantly in the Southwest, kind of moving up into national and strategic accounts, and then kind of working my way up to director and then VP of sales.
So when you think about your career, what are some of the most pivotal moments and biggest lessons you've learned along this path, this journey?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think some of the biggest lessons learned, one, patience, two, do the work, right? I think sometimes we really have a tendency to overcomplicate things when it's really the most basic things that make someone successful. Understanding expectations, adding value, do what you say you're going to do and follow up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so when you think about that, what challenges did you face when you're working your way in your current position and how were you able to overcome them?
Yeah. So I will say the biggest challenge that I've probably navigated my entire life, also because I'm in sales, is navigating no. I think all the time, we're told no, whether it's in a sales pitch or whether it's going for that next career opportunity or whatever that may be. But how do you navigate no? And I think it's really about shifting that mindset from it's not no, it's just not right now. And I think all individuals take the answer no and then just go about their day. But to be successful, you really need to shift that mindset and ask for feedback. Like take that feedback, address it, Work on it. What are you doing to better yourself? And what are you personally doing? So that way, when the next opportunity comes up or that next sales opportunity presents itself, that not only are you ready, but you're the best candidate or you're the best solution.
I mean, I think great lessons. And when I look back and even listening to what you've talked about, your path has always seemed to include being a leader. So, what qualities do you think helped you along that path? And what do you think makes a great leader?
I have a casual leadership style, but also I would say that, don't mistake that for high standards of excellence and doing the work. I started at the bottom. So for me, I have a personal understanding of a lot of the challenges that my team members are facing. So I can give a personal perspective or say, hey, this is what worked for me. But I think it's also being kind of in that curious growth mindset mentality of just because it's the way it worked for me isn't necessarily the way it's going to work for you. Being flexible. Just because this is the way it worked, it worked best for me, or the way we did things in the past isn't necessarily the way we will be moving forward. But here are just some tips and tricks. The other part is I love being part of a team. I love working with other people and, kind of forging those meaningful relationships. I don't know if you're a fan of Ted Lasso, but that's one of my
I love
favorite.
Ted. Love it.
Right? So love that show, and one of the things that he talks about, and it really resonates with me, is we win and we learn. And I think really being able to kind of create that safe space for team members of trying new things, and it's okay to fail, right? It's okay to fail. We're gonna learn from it. We're gonna fix it and we're gonna get better. I think is really important.
You almost touched on this next question I had for you in terms of like, how do you cultivate these leadership qualities and within yourself? And it sounds like, it's been a continuous process, but I love to hear some of the things you've done. So maybe our listeners can pick some tips up.
Yeah, I think a couple things is always be curious. I mean, I'm a lifelong learner. I love to learn new things, and then strong people. So people that I can learn from, people that are going to challenge my way of thinking, and then also hold me accountable. I think is really, really important just in kind of that continual growth mentality.
Now, so speaking of strong people, what are some of the leaders in the industry that you admire?
So I knew you were going to ask this question. You were going to ask this question. And I've been thinking about this a lot. And there's so many. Candidly, there's so many leaders that have influenced my career and how it's evolved and who I am today. And I think, the list has really evolved over time too, depending on where I was when I first started out and I really wanted to be in sales. I was looking at, who are the best salespeople? Who are the best salespeople out there? And how are they doing it? What could I learn from them? So when I was really starting and in like a highly competitive territory, I was in Southern California and I was still so new. So looking at people like Blake and, Jim Bates and, some of the individuals that were out there as I moved up in management, individuals like Zay Birch was a big, big advocate for me and a big sponsor for me in giving some critical feedback and then giving opportunity. And as moving into senior leadership, looking to people like Gavin Isaacs and Siobhan Lee, just how they navigate authentically and effectively, I think is a really big piece. And I'd be remiss if I didn't also touch on global gaming women. I mean, I am incredibly fortunate to work with individuals like yourself, Brandy and Lauren O'Brien and so many that I learn from every day, right? I think it's all about the company you keep. And I feel like I've been very lucky.
I feel like a bobblehead because I was just shaking my head the whole time that you were talking. You just named some just amazing industry greats that I count as people I admire and look to as well in terms of industry. You talked about global gaming woman, and I think it's very fitting for my next question. So, because we're thinking about it, we're in this gaming industry, and it doesn't have the best reputation in terms of gender proportions. At least it didn't. So how do you think your career has been impacted by the fact that you're a woman in this industry?
Yeah, that's a really great question. That's also a heavy question. When I first started, you hear people say, like, if you see it, you can be it. When I first started in gaming, and I don't know how it was for you, but I didn't see a lot of women. One, maybe two. There was none in sales, at least in where I was from a territory perspective, or very minimal. I think that was hard. And I think, especially as you're learning, I came into an industry that was at the time was very relationship based. whether you came through UNLV or you had like a family member that was in gaming, and I had none of that. So I was very reliant and lucky to find individuals, whether it was mentors or sponsors, to kind of help me bridge that gap. Entering sales, I think one of the key things to being successful in a sales role is relationship building, right? Specifically with our business partners. And again, this is going back, but it was all about the charity golf tournaments, or let's go to the cigar lounges, or the things along those lines where, I never picked up a golf club in my life. I didn't smoke cigars. So just trying to figure out how to navigate some of those opportunities and trying to figure out how to insert myself into those narratives where typically I probably wouldn't have been invited if I wasn't in that sales role. But I mean, so for those of you that don't know, and you know this, Global Gaming Women, we have a lot of benchmark statistics through the AGA and our partnership with them. And believe it or not, we've come such a long way. When you actually look at the gaming industry versus national average, we're actually above that. So I think we should be really proud. I think part of it is also we are intentionally doing the work to try to make sure that we're a more diverse and inclusive environment for all. That's something that I'm really proud of. So I think it's come I can tell you the landscape from 2006 to where we are today in 2024, it is significantly better. And it's just getting better from here. So really excited about that.
Mentorship is often a critical piece in terms of career advancements and kind of bridging the gap between some of those things. Who are some of those mentors that have helped you along your personal leadership journey?
Coming into an industry that I wasn't familiar with, I didn't have the connections that I needed. So I had to kind of start from scratch. I was lucky enough that my boss at the time, I was continuing to raise my hand and kind of ask for more. And I wanted to get into management and like more leadership type positions within the company. He actually directed me to Holly Gagnon and Ann Simmons and Christy Eichelman and some of those founding GGW members and was like, you should go meet these women. I think that this is a great opportunity and networking and learning opportunity for you. I will say she kind of changed the trajectory of my career and also probably my skill set and then also my network. I was very much in this bubble, so to speak, of the sales world. As soon as I joined Global Gaming Women, it really expanded that networking opportunity. It really is a personal passion for me because I think that I felt I just didn't have a lot of opportunity. I was working so much. And, how was I going to meet these women or how was I going to meet these people, sponsors, allies, whatever it is? I need them all, right? How was I going to build this personal board of directors for myself to move forward and kind of help me navigate and traverse that terrain? So anyways, joined Global Gaming Women and then really fell in love with the mentorship aspect. So ended up co-chairing the mentorship committee with Holly Gagnon, which oversees our lean in circles. The organization has given me so much, and then really trying to go back and make sure that others also have opportunities to network and connect meaningfully with other women and individuals.
Just a powerhouse list of women there at the beginning. And I think the moral of the story is for all listeners out there, join Global Gaming Women, right? So, and even with that, what has the presence of women in leadership roles, specifically in gaming, how has that evolved since you began your career? I mean, you talked a lot about that just now, but love to dig into that a little bit more.
When I first started in the industry and again in sale, I had this massive portfolio of casinos that I was working with and calling on, something like 160 between Arizona and Nevada. I had two that were women. I think that, that has changed and there's a lot more women getting into the operations, getting into sales, getting into the gaming industry in general. So it's been really fun to kind of see that evolution from where we started or where I started to where we are today.
And do you think there's still area for improvement? And do you believe that gaming organizations can do more to ensure that female talent can reach those leadership levels? I mean, we have Global Gaming Women. I know that we have a very, very strong mission, but what can others do?
It's a great question. We absolutely still have work to do. Global Gaming Women, we have a strategic partnership with the Sheryl Sandberg Foundation. Get a lot of statistics, like I said, whether it's through Lean In or whether it's through the AGA. And really, there's kind of two major challenges that we are still looking to address specifically. So one is still kind of that glass ceiling, kind of getting women to that senior level, right? But actually the challenge that is probably more pressing is what's actually called broken rung. There's a very specific gap between women and men getting promoted specifically from that entry level position. So for every 100 men that are promoted from an entry level position to that entry level manager, only 87 women are being promoted. And it just compounds, right? Because it's as you move up in your career from entry level management and as you move your way up into senior management and then the C suite, at the end of the day, it's just hard to catch up. I think that that's a really big piece. And also, again, just a challenge that I think our sponsors and organizations and nonprofits like ourselves are working on to address and make sure that, we are providing individuals, no matter where you are in your career, opportunities to continue to learn, to develop yourselves, and then prepare yourself for opportunity.
And that's a perfect segue to what I want to talk to you about next. So first off, congratulations. I'm so proud of you. I was so happy for your appointment to the board as board president and chair for Global Gaming Women. Can you tell us a little bit about what the mission and current initiatives of Global Gaming Women are?
So, really, it is about the education and advancement of women in the industry. We initially started as an organization with kind of a four-level leadership training, that entry level leadership, senior leadership, and then leadership or senior leadership alumni. We are offering leadership development programs throughout the US. There's been significant growth and demand in that area. We're also launching a partnership with Harvard Business this year, which is very exciting. We also have our Lean In Circles, which is kind of our grassroots program that we've had. So it's small group of women that are grouped through an application process and then have a 1 year commitment to support one another. They meet on a monthly basis, continued education, and things like that. I mean, the biggest push is programming, leadership development, networking opportunities. We're also doing a lot more membership mixers. We have this incredible offering. How can we then make sure that, we are reaching not all of our members, so whether you're in Las Vegas or in Europe or Australia or India or Canada or wherever you may be, Foxwoods say want to make sure that you are, whoever it is, getting full support and product offering and program offering, and that it's we're executing and delivering at a very high level.
Oh, I mean, I think that's great. And I feel like connection is a central theme. And it's great because mentorship is still one of the central linchpins of a lot of the programming that we do. And it's such an important part. So what has been your favorite part of being able to connect with so many different women within the gaming industry?
I like the newness. One of the things that we really have been focusing over the last couple of years, it's not necessarily creating content, but how can we go out and curate and partner with some of the best in the business and industry thought leaders, whether it's in gaming or outside of gaming, to then bring some of those best practices and that information and those trainings back to our industry, not only for our sponsors, but for our members and allies.
Can you talk to me about maybe some of the event initiatives that you can share or that you're excited about what's going on?
Yeah. So right now, I will say we are very busy in Las Vegas. We are hosting a handful of our leadership conferences. We also have some dine arounds going specifically that will be a follow up to those events. So all the attendees will actually get to have dinner with industry leaders and senior executives. Again, another great way to connect. Also looking to expand outside of kind of the traditional gaming space. We talk about the G2Es and the IGAs and things like that. But, as we're growing internationally and continuing to partner with more trade shows for programming and panelists and things like that. I talked a little bit before about the Harvard business. So that's exciting. And then we also are going to be beta piloting a one up, one down mentorship program. Basically, it's almost like a dating software for mentorship, right? So you go on, you can create a profile, and then it will allow women to go on and whether you're requesting a mentor or volunteering as a mentor, basically allow individuals to connect with other women internationally to kind of form those meaningful relationships.
There's so much stuff going on and so many opportunities to get involved. If there are women in the gaming industry that are listening right now, can you talk to them about how they can get involved in GTW and how they can kind of tap into this great energy?
Yeah, absolutely. So first things first, sign up. So I will say go to globalgamingwomen.org. Membership is free. So thanks to our incredible sponsors, not only are they committed to reinvesting in their staff, but also women in the industry. So please go on and you can sign up for free, and then you will get regular correspondence. The list of offerings is truly endless and growing, kind of by the minute right now. So it's a very exciting time for anyone who is looking for that next step. This is a really great place to start, and it's easy.
Yeah, no, it really is. It is a great organization. And with that, I mean, we have Global Gaming Women, but what is some other advice you have for women that are just starting out in gaming?
So my first one is do the work, whatever it is. And I don't care how big or how small the tasks, and be great at it. Put your best foot forward, even if it's, again, something small, do it really well. Because at the end of the day, when you do the work, you can never, like, no one can ever take that away from you. Be willing and open to feedback. That's one thing that probably when I was younger in my career, I was probably not, because I knew everything. I probably was not as willing, but, finding those people that you trust, that have your best interest, take the feedback and do something about it. Right. The other thing is you are in control of your career. Do not wait on anyone else to give you the promotion, to push you for the opportunity. At the end of the day, if you are waiting on someone else, you are on their time with their priorities. And no one will know your timeline or priorities better than yourself. So you need to own it. My last and final thing is find your people. Surround yourself with incredible people, whether it's mentors or sponsors or allies, but really kind of coming up with this personal board of directors that is going to support you. They're going to challenge you, and they will be your biggest cheerleaders when you're successful. But really kind of surrounding yourself with those great people will have a massive impact on the trajectory of your career and also your happiness.
Wow. I mean, enough said there. We thank you for
Oh,
all of those amazing insights. So, Lauren, we've talked a lot about your leadership journey and the things that you've been able to do to level up in your career. Can you talk about the importance of allies and how that has been instrumental in your career progression and personal development?
I can say wholeheartedly that I would not be where I am today if I did not have incredible male allies, and not only individuals that champion me, but also help me. Starting in sales, and I'm selling to casino operators when I don't have any operation experience. So whether it was, some of my early on customers who really kind of took that extra time. There are so many customers that I can't even begin to name because the list is so long, of operators who really kind of took me under their wing and were willing to, answer the question. The other part is when they're trying to explain some of their frustrations is at the end of the day, I've never worked in a casino. So I can remember a very specific incident where at the time we were struggling with peripheral installations with signage and, drink spills and all these things. So the casinos were really frustrated. And I knew my response was supposed to be as a salesperson, but I didn't really understand how it impacted their day to day. So Valley View Casino was one of the first casinos that I said, would you be willing to let me kind of assist and, oversee one of the installations so I can learn and you guys can point out to me some of these pitfalls and help my education in this process. And I remember, 4 o'clock in the morning, we were up and I was installing games and doing signage. And I think part of it and the key there is showing initiative, and then again surrounding yourself with people that are going to teach you and then allow you to learn. And that's just a very beginning of my career journey example, but they've continued along the way, and it's thanks to them that I have to say, in addition to so many others, that again I am where I am today.
And I still have another question as a follow up to that. I mean, we hear countless discussions about mentorship, but this conversation about allies really has me thinking more about sponsorship. So, can you talk about kind of the role that allies play in sponsorship and really what that is and what's the difference between mentorship and sponsorship?
Great question. So mentorship is going to be typically it's kind of an organic relationship that you have with someone who is typically senior to you in your industry or in your life that really provides kind of guidance and feedback and kind of helps you navigate challenges as they present themselves. Sponsorship is actually a more proactive relationship that you have with an individual, where a sponsor is it's actually typically like a sponsor and then almost like a protege. A sponsor is where they are actively putting you forward for opportunities and then, saying your name in that room that you're not in. Because I think a lot of that is it like when you talk about networking and you talk about opportunities, say that's where a lot of career growth comes from. Who is saying your name when you're not in that room? Who is putting you forward for those opportunities? I think, you and I talk about it all the time, is at the end of the day, I may not know the answer to whatever the question is, or I may not know the person that you're looking for the job that you're looking to fill. But I can go to my network and I can probably find you the information, or I could potentially find you those good candidates. So it really is, again, kind of it's a more proactive person in your life putting you forward for opportunity.
You hear a lot about mentorship programs, but now when you describing sponsor and kind of the role that helps in kind of leadership development, I know a lot of people out there was like, wow, I need one of those. So how do you
Yeah.
sponsor? What does that path to cultivating a sponsor look like?
I mean, it truly is through relationships, right? And I think a lot of it is through your mentors or through your ally or through your networking, through your peers, through your colleagues, through your family, whatever it may be. Those relationships, as they continue to grow, as they mature, the strength comes from typically firsthand knowledge, right? So as you're working with individuals, they can vouch for your skill set. They can vouch for putting you forward for opportunities. So I think that that's also a really big piece and I can't emphasize enough just the importance of relationships and kind of cultivating them and nurturing them. So the mentors or the allies, those people in your life, as they turn into sponsors, as they move up in their career and now through their positions have opportunity to present opportunities to others. They already know you. They know your skill set. They know what you want. That's the other part is having that open two-way communication about what your goals are. So that way they can help you and assist you in where you want to go.
So there you have it. Get yourself a sponsor or cultivate a relationship that allows someone to really see who you are fundamentally and know your potential and have the opportunity to put you forward in rooms where you're not in.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, Lauren, I have very much enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your leadership and your passion and everything that you do to support women in this industry. And we so much appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Level Up with Wondr. Visit wondernation.com/level up for more podcast episodes about how we're reimagining the gaming entertainment industry. Want to level up your business? Visit our contact page at wondernation.com to inquire about our strategic consulting or management services.